All right, so welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking all about automation. And I know it's a word that gets thrown around a lot these days, but trust me, this is going to be a little different than your usual, automation chat.
That's right. We're going beyond just the tech here. We're diving deep into the world of automation governance.
Governance, huh? So, like, rules and regulations for robots.
Well, it is about having rules, but it's not just about the robots themselves. It's really more about the people, It's about the strategies. It's about all the big picture decisions that shape how automation is actually used in a company.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. So we're not just talking about what automation can do, but how to make sure it's done right.
Exactly. And that's where a deep dive source comes in. This report, Overcoming Governance Challenges in Automation Programs. It's packed with insights on how to make automation work for you, not against you.
Sounds like a must-read for anyone thinking about, actually using this stuff in the real world.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for today, right? To break down some of these ideas and, make them a little more digestible.
So let's jump right in. One thing that jumps out at me from this report is the importance of having a, laser-focused vision for automation.
Couldn't agree more. It's got to be more than just let's automate everything and see what happens.
Yeah, because just making things faster isn't always the answer, right? So what are some of the goals companies should be thinking about when they're considering, diving into this automation world?
Well, you're absolutely right. Speed is a factor for sure, but there's so much more to it. Think about efficiency. How can automation help us do more with less? Or accuracy, can we use it to reduce errors? And even, employee satisfaction, can we free up people from those tedious tasks so they can focus on more meaningful work?
I love that. So it's about working smarter, not just harder.
Exactly. It's about using automation to empower your workforce, not replace it.
And I think this is where that whole, robots taking our jobs fear comes from.
Absolutely. It's a valid concern, which is why this whole idea of governance is so important.
Because if we're doing this right, it's not about robots versus humans. It's about, finding ways for them to work together.
Right. And that takes careful planning, open communication, and a clear understanding of how roles might shift, not disappear.
Okay, so practically speaking, what does that look like? Let's say, for example, you've got a data entry team.
Sure. Instead of just replacing those folks with, some fancy software, you might use automation to handle the repetitive data entry tasks. But then you reskill those employees to manage the system, analyze the data, and provide insights. Suddenly, you've got a team of data analysts instead of just data entry clerks.
Makes sense. But let's be real. Not every company is going to be that, forward thinking.
Yeah.
And I think this report actually used a pretty interesting phrase talking about, I think it was the fully automated enterprise.
Yeah, the fully automated enterprise.
That's
It's a
right.
catchy phrase, isn't it?
It is, but it also kind of sounds like, robots running the show.
Yeah.
So, is that really the end goal?
It's not as scary as it sounds. The fully automated enterprise is less about replacing people entirely and more about using automation where it makes the most sense.
So it's not just about doing everything with robots. It's about finding the right balance, the right mix of human and, machine power.
Exactly. It's about choosing what to automate strategically and recognizing that humans still bring a lot to the table. Think about problem solving, creativity, those uniquely human skills.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better about the robot uprising. But switching gears for a second, I think a lot of companies might get hung up on the tech side of things. Like if your systems are outdated or, nobody knows how anything works, can you even start with automation?
That's where we run into what's called technical debt, right? And it's a huge problem.
Technical debt, is that like when you forget to pay your internet bill?
Not quite. Think of it this way. It's like using duct tape to fix a leaky pipe. It might work for a little bit, but eventually that duct tape is going to fall apart and you're going to have a much bigger mess to clean up.
Right, so in the automation world, what does technical debt actually look like?
Well, it could be things like relying on outdated software or, like you said, having no documentation. And the result is, it's going to cost you. You'll have higher maintenance costs. It'll be harder to, grow your automation efforts, and you might even open yourself up to security risks.
Definitely not ideal. And speaking of things that aren't ideal, let's talk about the elephant in the room, job security. This report talks a lot about workforce concerns, and, rightfully so. People are worried about robots taking their jobs. So how do we address that?
The key is transparency. Companies need to be upfront about how automation will impact roles and responsibilities. It's not about keeping people in the dark. It's about proactively communicating how jobs might evolve and what new opportunities will arise.
Okay, so instead of just saying, hey, we're automating your job, see you later, it's more about, hey, things are changing, here's how your role will evolve, and here are the new skills you can learn to thrive in this new environment.
Exactly. It's about empowering the workforce, not displacing it. And honestly, this kind of open communication can actually help with the whole, change management side of things. If people feel like they're part of the process, they're more likely to embrace it.
That makes sense. And it ties back to that whole idea of trust, right? Because, let's be honest, companies haven't always had the best track record when it comes to these big, like business transformation projects.
You're right. Think about all this business re-engineering efforts back in the day. They didn't always deliver on their promises.
Exactly. So how do companies build that trust and, show that they're actually serious about doing this right this time?
Well, first and foremost, you've got to deliver on your promises. Set realistic goals, focus on measurable outcomes, and celebrate those wins along the way. Don't try to boil the ocean, right? Start small, prove the value, and then scale up gradually.
Okay, so no more big bang approaches. It's more about those incremental wins. Got it. But, the world's getting pretty complex out there. We've got cloud computing, AI, all these new technologies popping up left and right. So how does all of that fit into the automation puzzle?
That's a great question, and it's actually one of the things that trips a lot of companies up. You might think that cloud and automation would go hand in hand, but it's not always that simple.
Really? I would have thought they'd be, like best friends.
You would think so, right? But here's the thing. Your cloud strategy has to be aligned with your automation goals. If it's not, well, you could end up with systems that don't talk to each other, creating a real logistical nightmare.
So it's like having all the ingredients for a delicious cake, but no recipe to put it all together.
Exactly. You might have all the right pieces, but if they don't fit together properly, you're not going to get the results you're looking for.
Okay, that's making a lot of sense. So let's say a company is ready to, embrace this whole automation governance thing. What are the key pieces, the essential building blocks of a framework that actually works?
The first thing I'd say is collaboration. This isn't a solo mission for the IT department. It takes buy-in from everyone. You need the business units, leadership, IT, and of course, the people whose jobs will be impacted by these changes.
So it's about getting everyone on the same page from the get-go.
Exactly. And that means being transparent about the why behind the automation strategy. It's not just about, implementing shiny new tech for the sake of it. It's about solving real business problems and making everyone's lives easier.
Easier and hopefully more, meaningful.
Right. Because at the end of the day, it's all about empowering people, not just automating tasks.
But, we live in a fast-paced world. Things are constantly changing. New technologies emerge all the time. So how can companies make sure their governance frameworks stay relevant? I mean, we don't want them to become outdated, right?
You know what? You bring up a really important point. It's about adaptability. The framework can't be this rigid, static thing. It needs to be a living, breathing document that can adapt to new technologies, evolving business needs, and even shifts in the regulatory landscape.
Okay, so more like a set of guidelines than a rule book, huh? Can you give me an example? Like, what if a company wants to adopt a new AI-powered tool, but their current framework doesn't really, address AI?
That's a perfect example. A rigid framework might prevent them from adopting that tool, even if it could make them much more efficient. But a flexible framework would allow them to integrate it safely and responsibly, while still maintaining that overall control and, making sure everything aligns with their broader goals.
So it's all about finding that balance between structure and flexibility, control, and innovation.
Exactly. You've got to be able to move with the times, otherwise you're going to get left behind.
Well said. So to wrap this all up, it sounds like effective automation is about so much more than just, buying a bunch of robots and hoping for the best. It's about having that solid governance framework in place to guide the process, make sure everyone's on the same page, and ultimately use this incredible technology to make our work lives better, not worse.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Automation has incredible potential, but it's up to us to use it wisely. And that's exactly what governance is all about.
Absolutely. Now, as we leave you today, here's a little something to ponder. We've talked a lot about the what and the how of automation governance, but what about the why? As these technologies become more and more sophisticated, more powerful, what are the ethical considerations we need to be thinking about? That's something for you to mull over, maybe even spark some conversations of your own. Until next time.
Until next time.